Welcome to the show. My name is Charlton with Big C. This is Charlton and Big C Sports coming to you worldwide on the iHeartRadio network, the best network in the United States and one of the best in the world. Over 250 million people in the listening platform on a weekly basis. And also I want to say bienvenidos to all of you Latin American listeners, so thank you very much. And also I want to say hello, London, England. You're in the house, as well as Berlin, Germany. The great country of Canada. Oh, Canada. You know I love my Canada, Big C. And also you good old boys down in Australia actually had a good running in the basketball in the Olympics. And then you good old boys out in Dubai. Met someone from Dubai over the weekend. And would you know, when they build high-rise buildings in Dubai, they actually have to drill through about 30 feet of sand to put the buildings on columns. So Big C, they can hide money in the sand like you good old boys hide money down in the backyards, Big C. So you guys have a lot in common with Dubai, Big C.
Well, Charlton, grass grows everywhere down here, so money's green. You put it out there in the grass. No one knows us out there, so no one wants to go walk in the wild in the tall grass. Because we also got a few snakes and little things like that around there, so it's almost like having a security guard around.
Yeah, I think it's Vin Rhames when he says, you know, Vin Rhames, a great actor out of Hollywood. He talked about, he has his ADT commercial, and he says, just try it, or make my day, or something of that nature. But I think he had his best role actually in Baby Boy, and also he had a great role in Pulp Fiction. I actually loved his role in Pulp Fiction, Big C. But if he's sitting in front of your house, I don't think anybody's going to try to rob the house, Big C. But when it comes to the good games that we just had for the Americans anyway, when it comes to the Olympics, very proud of our country. And the women dominated. I mean, we talk about gender equality when it comes to who gets paid, but the women did a great job in the Olympics, Big C. They actually represented America very well. The medal count for the United States, 121 medals. They were followed by China, who makes most of our merchandise, Big C. China only has...
made the outfits, Charlie.
Yeah, China made the outfits, but the United States won the gold medals, Big C. And also Great Britain had 67 gold medals. China had 70. And then you have, Russia won gold medals. How'd they win gold medals? Most of their people were disqualified, Big C. So I think they
snuck a couple in.
Okay, they snuck a couple people in there. And you have Germany. They make great automobiles. They have 42 total medals, as well as France. They have great wine in France. Japan, 41. Australia, 29. Italy has great wine also at 28. And then, Canada, they had 22 gold medals, Big C. Your thought on the Olympics, Big C?
Well, Charlton, it comes every 4 years, the Summer Olympics, and it's a worldwide spectacle. You know, where you sit back in anticipation of some greater performances, some disappointing performances, and just most of performances. You know, it's like the old saying from the wide world of sports that used to be on ABC, the thrill of victory and the agony of defeat.
Exactly.
That's what the Olympics bring. You know, we see so many young, excitable athletes, especially those, Charlton, who did not expect to win, who just expected to be there and compete. We saw it in the pool. We saw it in wrestling. We saw it in boxing, Charlton, where you had these young athletes that had an opportunity to be on a world stage. And they, all of a sudden, they rose to the top pendulum and received the gold medal. You know, Charlton, one of the greatest highlights for me in the entire Olympics, everybody talks about the superstars in individual sports, the basketball. But Brazil's men winning the gold medal in soccer.
Oh, that was big for them.
Neymar winning in a kickoff over Germany. It was one of the greatest spectacles that you'll ever witness in sports, Charlton, because it was the hometown host city and country winning a gold medal in their national sport. So it was one of those things. I mean, they called the goal for 5 minutes. It just resonated throughout Brazil. You know, if you get a field goal or a touchdown pass that wins the Super Bowl, bam, it's over, okay? But soccer is appreciated by its fans, by its broadcasters, and the electricity that you saw in that stadium in Brazil when Neymar made that extra kick against Germany was just electrifying. And then we have the embarrassment of a Ryan Lochte, the Olympic swimmer. I mean, this guy should be ostracized from everything, Charlton. A liar is a liar. He's lucky he doesn't have to deal with Roger Goodell.
Yeah, isn't that true, Big C?
He could never even take a shower again. He couldn't get close to water. Couldn't have a glass of water.
Well, in fact, he's lucky that he lives in California because he's not getting any more water endorsements, Big C. I think you think about some of the broadcasters that talked about this, and they had him on I think it was NBC this morning, and they had a few other people saying they put too much time into him. There should have been a lot more time given to the people that did things the right way. So,
Charlton, this was their good old boy, okay?
Yeah,
this was their good old boy that they were trying to protect.
Yeah.
That's what it is with Brian Lockett. He's a flat-out liar.
Yeah.
Liar, period.
Yeah.
And that's what they should label him. And don't sit there and say, well, did you mistake or did you make, overzealous statements?
Yeah.
Just straight out say, hey, you're a straight-up liar.
Yeah,
Tell the truth.
Well, they had Matt Lauer had him on TV this morning. He was trying to act like they were friends. Like Matt's going to ask him tough questions. Okay, these are the questions we're going to ask you, but I have to seem like I'm tough on you, right? Spend time on the people who won the gold medals. And speaking of gold medals, this segment is sponsored by your Northern California Cadillac dealers, home of the all-new Cadillac Escalade, the standard of the world. And when you go down and test drive it, tell them that Charlton and Big C sent you. You know, Big C, it's funny, I was telling some good old boys how you guys down in the South, you take your Cadillac Escalades, you guys go out driving mud, you actually go fishing and even hunting for raccoon and other kind of livestock, Big C. And in California, a lot of people, they make you take your shoes off when you get in your Cadillac Escalade, Big C. So you good old boys, I don't know if you have the same trade-in value down south that you do on the West Coast, but I just want to let you know, maybe clean the mud out before you guys take it back to the dealership.
We like to look at them as a luxury hunting vehicle. Yeah. We want our captives and what we've gone out and got to ride back to stove in comfort, okay?
Yeah,
there's no need being in the back of a pickup bouncing all over the place. You should have your last ride in comfort. And that's how we look at it.
I understand, speaking of the comfort. And ironically, when we talk about this whole thing with athletes and having a social consciousness, I was really impressed with Carmelo Anthony because he's the team leader for the United States men's basketball team. And he was asked a few questions about what it means to him. And he's been at it so long, but he got a little bit emotional because he said it's his last run, Big C. But I really think that Carmelo becomes more of a spokesperson. Now, here are guys who looked up to Michael Jordan. They all wanted to be like Mike. But I hear Carmelo Anthony, he's still pushing that thing about Americans need to unite. And we may have our differences, but we have to stick together. And we want to make a difference for the younger people. So the more I hear Carmelo Anthony talk, and I'm really impressed with him as a young man, Big C. Just your thoughts on him and how he's probably taken the forefront and making people know that you're more than just a jock, Big C. Your thoughts on that?
Well, Charlton, he's really grown over the last decade. You know, when he left Denver, he had a shadowed background and stuff, people he were involved with, things that he would say.
Yeah.
But since he's gone to the Big Apple, New York, and he's been around a group of people, corporate America, seeing how the world works. He's gotten married, he has a family.
Yeah.
It changes men.
Yeah.
You know, when you have to worry about somebody else, when you have a family to feed, your perspective changes in a hurry.
Yeah.
And Carmelo Anthony has done that. We've seen it in many occasions where he's had town hall meetings in New York.
Yeah.
He's spoken out publicly, locally and internationally.
Yeah.
And that's something that, if you have politicians, Charlton, which we need the politicians, our elected officials, to make statements about this, not just the president.
Yeah.
We have congressmen, we have senators who are quiet and say, hey, I don't want to upset my constituents.
Yeah.
And so I'm not going to say anything. I don't want to upset law enforcement. I don't want to upset voters. I'll just stay quiet.
Yeah.
I'll take my money. I won't vote on anything. And I'll take my 3 and 4 week vacation every 3 months.
Well,
that's what Congress and the Senate does.
Yeah, they definitely have the money, Big C. But just impressed when I see young men, especially young black men, because a lot of people behind closed doors, they're considered the dumb jock, and I hate that. But I also want to bring up that Kevin Durant had a great game, and he has 30 points in the final game. Also, DeMarcus Cousins, the Sacramento Kings. Here's a guy who just has talent written all over him, Big C. But as far as him actually wanting to be a leader, maybe he'll turn it around in Sacramento. I don't know, but this market, they have a player who has a gold medal now. Maybe it takes that seminal moment that can make him realize, quit being a knucklehead and getting personal fouls and cussing up the coach here in Sacramento. Because if you're around guys that have some class, maybe that will grow on him. I'm really impressed with him as an athlete. He had 13 points and 15 rebounds, and they dominated Serbia by the score of 96-66. But even guys like Draymond Green, who had, he had a thing with video cameras, or was it cell phones, Big C? Taking some selfies. He actually was a little bit quiet. Coach Krzyzewski kept him on the bench, but he's actually a good leader for the Golden State Warriors. But Durant, his 30 points, he had 24 in the first half, really shows what Golden State will have next year, Big C, when they have not only Durant, but Thompson, and of course Curry and Draymond Green. It's just a matter of who they're going to get the ball to, Big C. Your thoughts on how Golden State will take these two guys, actually three of their starters have gold medals coming back. Steph Curry decided not to play in the Olympics, Big C, but will that network of that power, I guess you call them power brokers, will that help Golden State, or will they actually find out it's hard to pass the ball to somebody, Big C?
Well, Charlton, if you go back to power eras of the past, where you had teams that had superstars, the Lakers during Showtime.
Yeah.
You had Kareem, you had Worthy, you had Magic, you had Byron Scott, you had Michael Cooper.
Yeah.
These guys could play basketball. You really had one rebounder in Kurt Rambis, but these guys could play basketball, so you didn't have to worry about much. You go back and look at the great Boston Celtics when you had Larry Bird, Robert Parrish, Kevin McHale. You had the big three. Johnson, this has always existed in sports. Seattle Supersonics, they had it. The Portland Trailblazers, and we all know what the Chicago Bulls had. So when you look at these super teams that have been put together, the most recent one had been the Miami Heat with Bosh, Wade, and James. So they can work together. You have to understand, you're dealing with professionals who have a common goal. You're not dealing with selfish kids and I'll take my ball and go home. That's what we all grew up with.
Yeah,
man, because you were being abused on the court. I'll take my ball and go home. You guys find your own and play with it.
Well,
you probably did that several times, Charlton. But when you look at these superstars being put together, they understand. They had conversations prior to signing. Kevin. Kevin met with these guys. They had a common understanding. They played against each other for years. So they recognize and respect each other's game. There won't be any fall off in Golden State. Will they win 73 games?
No.
Maybe not.
No.
But 79's not bad. 70 is not bad.
70 is not bad either, Big C. Also thinking of not bad, I'm telling you, there's something about the UFC. We had a couple of fighters on the program, and they were talking about the UFC. I actually did some interviews with guys last year that were fighting in the West Coast Championships. They held it up in Sacramento. And you know that you have Dana White is brilliant because the guy's worth $4 billion now, bought the UFC for $2 million. Now, you have some guys in the Northern California region that I really believe are going to put the UFC on the map in Northern California, because a lot of that with Uriah Faber, he's a local guy here in Northern California, and Nate Diaz is actually out of Stockton, just down the road on the Delta. But I look at what happened over the weekend with the UFC fighters. Mike Tyson was one of the guys in the audience, Big C. They took so much flack just starting this business just several years ago because people thought it was too brutal. Well, people realized it's as close to the gladiators in the Roman Colosseum that you could get. What happened with Diaz and McGregor, it went 5 rounds. It was a decision. My cynical side says there was no way that Diaz was going to win that fight because there will be a third fight coming up down the road, even though Dana White is saying not right now because they got to milk more people out of money, of course. But the fight game is so exciting, would you believe, Big C, that even in Sacramento, the state capital, a conservative city, they're hosting a UFC fight on Fox Sports in December at the new Golden One Center, Big C, and that's why the UFC will take over the world of fighting. I think it's even displacing boxing with the excitement, Big C. I know you good old boys down south, you probably only care about football, Big C, but UFC, your thoughts on McGregor and Diaz over the weekend, Big C?
Well, Charlton, I think the UFC was invented when the family got together, the barbecue, and too much moonshine and beer was passed down. Then all of a sudden you had these tussling matches that were going on.
I've seen some of those.
From the outside was filming this and said, hey guys, we can make this a paid sport.
So you
saying boys do it for free all the time.
So you're saying the UFC started down south, Big C? Is that what you're trying to say?
The UFC started down south with some barbecue and beer drinking, Charlton. That's where it started. I mean, Dana White may have gotten paid for it, but the idea came from down here. It's been around. It's one of those sports that we've always known and understood, Charlton. But when you look at as you spoke about it, the modern day gladiator aspect of it. Everything in life, Charlton, revolves.
Yeah.
It comes back to where it once was. Whether it's clothing, whether it's sports, whether it's entertainment, it comes back to where it once was. And if you look at the UFC,
it's amazing.
It's come back to where entertainment originally was, Charlton. The Roman Coliseum, the gladiators.
Yeah, I think that's so true, Big C. And when you think about it, Nate Diaz out of Stockton. Now, we talked about how much money McGregor was making. Nobody's going to ever make Floyd Mayweather kind of money. But Diaz pocketed $2 million, and that's what we know of, Big C. We don't know what he pocketed from his good old friends down in the Stockton area gambling. But $2 million is not a bad payday, but it's really not enough money. It's not a lot of money in the world of fighting now. And that's the great thing about this fight team, this Team Alpha Male that they have up here in Sacramento. I'm telling you, there's some really good fighters that I've seen. There was a guy named Max Griffin. There's some guys that fight on the undercard. And I really I think that people who love this sport, they don't want to admit it, Big C, at first, but we love seeing people bleed. Now, the difference between boxing and UFC among being able to get on the ground and elbow and poke people in the eye and all that jazz is they let them bleed all over the place, Big C. If you're a fighter, you get cut, they stop the fight because they want to stop the blood from happening, Big C. But UFC, I can see some health issues coming down the road because you can't have guys with open wounds exchanging blood, Big C. It's like a vampire sport, from what I understand, Big C. Your thought on that?
Well, Charles, when you have blood-borne passages in the airways, it becomes a risk for everybody, not just the fighters, but also the fans that are around the ring. I don't know if many people remember former heavyweight champion Tommy Morse.
Yeah.
He was the great-nephew of the great John Wayne.
Yeah.
And he had to quit boxing because he had contacted the HIV virus.
Yeah.
So he could no longer fight in the ring. So, I don't know if the UFC is testing for that.
They're going to have to start.
It's always a concern.
It's always a big concern.
Yeah, it's always a big concern. And you can get it anywhere. If we remember the late Arthur Ashe, how he contacted it through a blood transfusion and lost his life. It's not always about a lifestyle, Charles. It's just about risk that you cross every day in life that you may not understand or even know that are happening.
Yeah.
It's like we're looking at the Zika virus right now. And no one knows how it started.
Yeah.
No one knows where we're in.
Yeah.
People can't even say whether... We know that the mosquitoes can transmit communicable diseases.
Yeah.
So what's the limitation on mosquitoes or any other biting bug transmitting a communicable disease, Charles?
Well, Big C, I just think that when you see these guys bleeding all over each other, I mean, it's gross at one point, but it hits this primal part of me. It's kind of like one time I think I met you for dinner and you ate a steak, and I said, Big C, are they going to cook the steak? You said, yeah. But they already did, but that thing was still bleeding, Big C. So
well, I like it to wiggle a little bit, Charles, when I put that knife on it. It's just like going out hunting,
Yeah.
You put that knife and start pulling that skin, it wiggles a little bit.
Yeah, so I got to warn all you Californians, when you hang out with the good old boys from the South, it's almost like MacGyver, so I'm really impressed with the tenacity of you guys, Big C. And speaking of tenacity, this segment is sponsored by the California Lottery. Big C, I keep telling you, that Powerball is $127 million, one of my favorite numbers, and I actually bought the winning ticket. And obviously, I told you I've been scratching and itching, Big C, and I went to my doctor about it because it doesn't make any sense that a grown man would be scratching and itching. He said if you take a shower, it gets rid of that, Big C. So I thought I was helping California with the drought, but I took a shower and my itch went away. So anyway, guys, I'm really happy to report that news to you. But Big C, what are you going to do when we hit that $127 million, Big C?
I think I'll go out and noodle, Charles. And people who don't know what noodling is, that's when we catch catfish by the hand. These huge cats, and they hide in these caves along the bank. We know how to get them out. We don't have to use a rod reel. I know you people out there in California call yourself sport fishing and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
There's more water in the bathtubs out there than you got in the lake. So we'll catch some fish and send you some.
Well, I tell you, California sport fishing is different than you good old boys down south. There's some guys that I knew from Florida. When they went fishing, they actually went fishing for alligator, Big C. So I stayed in the boat. You guys are a little bit tougher than we are out here, Big C. But also, I know that you are really big on trying to say, hey, didn't I tell you? And I'm looking at NFL football, and I love it. And I know it's your favorite sport, Big C, outside of college and watching Alabama getting ready to get knocked off by USC. Big C.
Well, no, Charlton, I mean, we're sitting in the back having a nice cold glass of moonshine. That's real sporty. Now. You don't understand because you relax and enjoy yourself.
Well, I understand that, Big C, and I hate knocking guys because I think anyone who can put on a uniform or, as you said, jockstrap, they've earned it, Big C. But I look at all of our brethren in the broadcast media, and this is a competitive world too, whether it's Carson Wentz or whether it's Jeff Goff. I'm looking at the second week of his performance, and it says Rams quarterback Jeff Goff not looking like a number one quarterback. I mean, when did they figure that out? He was 14-26 at Cal, Big C. Why did it take them 3 years to figure that out, Big C? Your thoughts on Jeff Goff?
Well, Charlton, he looked pretty standing there, okay? Yeah. He looked like a model.
Right.
They weren't drafting a quarterback. They were drafting a model in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
Because when we look at the quarterbacks that have performed in the preseason, they were mined by those ESPN experts and Fox experts, Charlton.
Where are they now, though? Where's Mel Kiper now? I mean, I don't even see him around anymore. He's like come up missing, Big C. Any thoughts on Mel Kiper down south?
Mel Kiper's probably out tanning his head, Charlton.
Yeah.
But when you look at the performance of a Zach Prescott, who he said was a late round draft pick where he went.
Yeah.
And you look at Cordell Jones, who they said was not ready.
Amazing.
Needed to be coached up.
Yeah.
Now, out of the guy who in 2 years of starting in quarterback, Charlton, in college, wins 25 games in 2 years.
Yeah.
25 games in 2 years, Cordell Jones.
Against top competition.
He's won 25 in 2 years. And then you look at Jeff Goff.
Yeah.
His team won 14
in 3 years. Yeah.
About half the production.
Yeah.
And you're saying that he was NFL ready and Cordell Jones needs to be coached up.
Yeah.
I look at Zach Prescott, the greatest player in Mississippi State history.
Yeah.
You know, who led his team as a senior to 9 or 10 victories.
He was a steal.
More than Mississippi State had ever had in their history.
In the toughest conference, too, in America, the SEC.
In the SEC, playing with real men.
Yeah.
You know, not the little boys that playing football, playing against real men.
Right.
You know, the only difference between the SEC and the NFL is how much money they get paid.
So, wait, you mean on top of the table anyway, right?
Yeah.
I hear some of you good boys take a pay cut when you get drafted.
The competition that Zach Prescott had to play against in college, a lot of defensive backs, defensive linemen, and linebackers that play in the NFL versus Carson Wentz.
Yeah.
He played against nobody who's going to play in the NFL, okay?
Yeah.
And so who's ready when you can go out and pass for 300 yards against these schools, Charlton, versus when you get your first shot at an NFL team, a strong safety takes you out for the season.
Yeah, well.
You look at your boy there, Jeff Goff.
Yeah.
Who's done nothing.
Right.
You know, in 2 games, he's done nothing. And he will not do anything. It'll be Case Keenum as a starter for the Rams when the regular season kicks off. And then we talk about Washington with Kirk Cousins.
Yeah.
He wins 10 games, and he said it's worth $20 million.
Yeah.
RG3 didn't say a word, okay? Didn't say a word. Waited on his opportunity before Exodus ends up in Cleveland.
Yeah.
Looked like the most polished quarterback, veteran quarterback thus far in the preseason, Joe.
Well, he's not hurt anymore, Big C. He's not hurt anymore.
Well, yeah, that's all it takes. So, and you compare that to Andrew Luck's performances, what RG3 has done. It's night and day. And I'm not saying black and white, just night and day.
Right.
You know. So, but RG3 has outperformed Andrew Luck. Well, and, you know, when you think about it, his top 2 receivers, Charlton, have not played in the first 2 games.
Well, Big C, that's a very good point. And also, speaking of making good points, this segment is sponsored by United Labor Insurance. I'm an insurance broker with United Labor, guaranteed $100,000 life insurance with no medical questions. We're also endorsed by the American Heart Association and the American Cancer Society. And I'm also looking to work with I'm looking for 1,000 brokers to offer $100,000 life insurance guaranteed, no medical questions. Now imagine if you've been turned down by an insurance company, Big C. You actually stay in the system. With United Labor, we can underwrite that through Transamerica, okay? So we can do that. And I'm also looking to employ 1,000 licensed insurance brokers to work with the AFL-CIO. We represent all of the unions in the United States. So tweet out to Charlton and Big C Sports. You can also follow us on the iHeartRadio network. And one of the reasons you should advertise on the iHeartRadio network is, I'll tell you why. Number one, sports is a billion-dollar industry, and nothing collects people like the sports business. With our program, Charlton and Big C Sports on the iHeartRadio network, you're actually going to get people together from all different backgrounds and cultures, and they cheer for people, Big C, just like they're going to cheer for USC when they go beat Alabama down in the great state of Texas. But with,
University of cash.
Yeah, we have that spending cash thing going on. But the great thing about iHeartRadio, and I want your thoughts, Big C, because you worked in media for so long. When you have a sports program, if you understand that any station that carries a sports program in one of the hottest growing sports programs in the country like ours, understand that over 150 million people watched the Super Bowl last year. If you don't have a sports program, you're missing the boat. With Charlton and Big C Sports, not only do we bring you all the pro and college sports, but we also talk about the business aspect, and we're trying to get people back to work. Big C, your thoughts on why anyone should advertise with the Charlton and Big C Sports on iHeartRadio?
Well, you think about broadcasting on sports, which is fantasy and reality in lives of people in America.
Yeah.
But, it touches the poignant part of what they do. And it's advertising when you have someone captivated, when you know that they're going to stay in place for a show. That gives you an ROI on your investment. When you broadcast on a show when you know people are changing channels all the time, because the substance is not there, that has gotten weak and repetitive, people will change the channel or tune out. They can tell you about their overall numbers, but as an advertiser, tell yourself which show would you listen to, which show would you watch. That's how you gauge. I mean, you can have all these surveys and everything, but what motivates and captivates you as an advertiser? What are you interested in? If you're interested in sports, do you want real talk? Or do you want the fluffer sitting over there saying, hey, everything is okay?
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
That's basically what you have. You're getting a tease job on one side, and you're getting the real deal over here with Charlton and Big C Sports.
And speaking of the real deal, Big C, I know that you are loving Fitzpatrick with the New York Jets. Coach Todd Bowles, he declined to say whether Geno Smith, remember he had his jaw broken by one of his own teammates, Big C. He remains the number 2 quarterback behind Ryan Fitzpatrick. But if you're Bowles, who would you start? I think Fitzpatrick has earned it because he had 30 touchdown passes last year. But Geno Smith, they put more money into him. But if you were in his shoes, who would you put at your starter, Big C?
I got to go with Fitzpatrick, Charlton. I mean, understand, Geno Smith potentially is the quarterback of the future with the Jets.
Yeah.
But you got to win right now in the NFL. We've always said, what have you done for me lately? I mean, you can sit around and stick with a quarterback like a Jay Cutler, Matt Stafford, or Matt Ryan, and get nowhere for several years. And we've seen that. You're paying these guys $100 million and you can't make the playoffs. But you had Fitzpatrick with the Jets who missed the playoffs by 1 year. Geno Smith can be around the NFL for another decade.
Yeah.
Matt Ryan will not be around that long, Charlton. So if he's patient and intelligent, sit back and learn when he gets that opportunity, a la Steve Young.
Oh, yeah.
Who sits back and learn, who's a great athlete, tremendous athlete, number 1 draft pick overall by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Yeah.
But when he went to San Francisco, he understood that he needed to learn the offense completely. It wasn't about ego. You can go across town and look at Eli Manning, Charlton.
Oh, yeah.
The Giants haven't made the playoffs in 5 years. He has a $120 million contract.
Yeah.
He's being paid on past performances.
Yeah.
The Giants won't even make the playoffs this year, Charlton. They're a pathetic offense.
Well, he's
led by Eli Manning, but the media will say, hey, his receivers are letting him down. They got to do a better job. But this, his offensive line is just not holding up.
Somebody else's fault.
Eli is not doing anything wrong. We can look at San Diego where Joey Bosa's holding out.
Yeah.
Phillip Rivers. I mean, he hasn't done much lately.
Yeah.
So when you talk about these big cap quarterbacks, Charlton, these are the quarterbacks that are supposed to rise above everybody else, get their team to the playoffs, regardless of the shortcomings of their offense or defense.
Yeah.
If they're supposed to be the elite, dominant players in pro football, but they're not doing it. And the media's giving them a pass when they have bad days. Kirk Cousins, like we said, lucked up. Won 10 games last year with the Skins.
And $20 million wealthier.
Yeah, he made himself $20 million.
Yeah, that's funny.
Do it again, Charlton. Consistency. Consistency. I mean, Eli Manning, like I said, got $122 million.
Yeah.
His brother tiptoed out of football when he got hit with a PED.
Yep.
Allegation.
Right.
I always died because my foot hurt even though it's my neck.
Yeah. The football's connected to the neck bone, Big C. That's exactly what it is. But also, I want to just touch on this because I think this is very important. I love to give credit where credit's due. And I believe in what we're doing. We just heard that Kobe Bryant invested $100 million in his company, in the stock market. Here's a guy who's been wealthy beyond most people's dreams. And I'm proud to see young men not just being sycophants athletes, Big C. It's so important, especially African Americans, because We used to have a black stock market in Tulsa, Oklahoma. It was destroyed in, I think, 1934 by some good old boys down south, Big C. But people have to understand that business and sports is synonymous. It goes together. So I'm proud of that. Also, we talked about LeBron James. He has an investment show that's going to be on MSNBC. He's helping in the Cleveland area get young people to invest in their dreams by having investors and also his own money, some of that corporate money, Big C, putting that to work to put people back to work again. So when it comes to working, why I feel so great about Charlton and Big C Sports, I want to give some credit to a gentleman at iHeart Network called David Gibbons. I met the gentleman with iHeart, and he's a great person. He has a good business savvy, good business acumen. So we're working on some things to put Charlton and Big C on a bigger platform. Also, I want to thank our attorney, Tamika Doss. She's part of the NFL alumni, and she's done a lot of good work with NFL players, and we have a lot of good things we look forward to with that organization there. But Big C, I just want to touch on this too, because before we close, you look at the San Francisco 49ers. They went into Denver and won, and we have Colin Kaepernick still hasn't played because he's still recovering from the surgery that he had in the offseason. But I know Gabbert, they're trying to just push Gabbert to the forefront. I still don't see it, Big C, but what is Kelly doing? Does he understand that he's going to have to curtail some of the media? Because it seems like the media, they just want to push Gabbert even though he hasn't won anything. If you're in Kelly's shoes, Big C, what would you do in his shoes, Big C?
When you look at Kelly, you got to gauge him on the success that he's had in the NFL, or even lack of success, Charlton. He's had a couple of different starting quarterbacks in his system. He's had Michael Vick.
Yeah.
He's had Nick Foles. He had Sam Bradford. And he has not ever in the NFL achieved the success that he did at the University of Oregon.
Yeah.
Because men are not threatened like little boys.
Yeah.
And you have to understand, if you're going to run that Oregon system, then you need that Oregon-type quarterback.
Yeah.
It's not a drop-back system as we witnessed last year with Bradford.
Yeah.
And, trying to run to the sideline with Murray, who was a down-hitter runner.
Yeah.
Who wasted a year out of his career after coming over from Dallas.
Yeah.
Nick Foles, he put him out in the wind, even though he, the year before he had 30 touchdowns and 3 interceptions.
Yeah.
So, does Chip Kelly have a true understanding of the NFL? Or does everyone want to see Chip Kelly be successful?
Yeah.
Chip Kelly is another run-of-the-mill college football coach.
Yeah.
A la Steve Spurrier,
yeah,
who's been great in college, had found no success in the NFL.
Yeah.
Nick Saban, who has been great in college, found no success in the NFL. Lane Kiffin, Nick Saban's offensive coordinator.
Yeah.
Great in college, found no success in the NFL. It's a little different, Dalton, when you can snatch somebody's scholarship, threaten them, berate them, even use profanities against them. Now, you go behind a closed door
yeah,
with an NFL offensive lineman, defensive lineman.
Yeah.
You need to be the one sitting down in the chair, not him.
It's like Jim Brown. It's like Jim Brown said in a skit that he had with the late Richard Pryor. Gentlemen, I think if you let the man go, he could express himself a little better. And some of these coaches, they realize that the NFL players, they have a lot more money in the bank than these college players, unless they played at Ohio State, Big C, of course. But then they have to really respect the man they're talking to. And after
Charlton, I had a coach one year.
Uh-huh.
We were on a losing streak. And he walked into the team meeting one day and said, look, I'm tired of you SOBs, the way you play.
Yeah.
All you're doing is cashing a paycheck.
Yeah.
You're not trying. You have no heart. You have no guts.
Yes.
He said, I know I'm going to get fired.
Yeah, right.
But I guarantee I'll get rid of some of you asses before I get out of here.
Well, we know how you good old boys down south use profanity, like a lot of people use handshakes. But out here in California, we teach our kids to have more respect, Big C. But speaking of California and football, after we close out our final segment, I just want to say this final segment is sponsored by One Life Insurance. I'm a life insurance broker with One Life of America. We're the leaders in the country when it comes to final expense. I'm also looking to hire 1,000 licensed insurance broker to help spread final expense to help protect American families. We'll also pay your E&O insurance up to $1 million per agent. Also, Beneath His Wings Foundation.org and also CYNN Entertainment. Contact Cynthia Evans. She's the best in Northern California. And also, thank you, Becca, the business stupid. Big C, in the final segment, my heart and soul, I love the NFL and I love NBA, but something about college football, even the way the air smells when it starts to get rid of the heat and we have this feeling of
beer and barbecue.
Okay, you guys call it beer and barbecue, we call it heat out here at Big C. But there's something about college football that makes everybody happy, maybe because the young kids are heading to college. But they have the preseason, Alabama number 1, Clemson number 2, Oklahoma, who always chokes, Florida State number 4, LSU 5, and Ohio State number 6. They have Michigan 7, Stanford, the Pac-12, and they're number 8 by Tennessee, and then Notre Dame at number 10. They have USC at number 20, which I think is very, very low for a team that returns 16 starters. Your thoughts on college football, Big C? What are you looking forward to this year?
Well, the difference between the NFL and college football, Charles, is like walking in a room and turning on the light switch. You got instant electricity.
Yeah.
That's what college football brings. You go to an NFL game, you can sit in your seat and keep it warm.
Yeah.
You go to a college football game, you stand up, your seat gets cold.
Yeah.
Because there's so much electricity and excitement in the stadium. It's just something that's bred across the country that you enjoy. You want to be the one cheering the loudest. You want to be the one making the most noise. You want to be the one on the winning side. And to help motivate your team. And I can recall in playing college football.
Yeah.
When that crowd got up, Charlton, and was cheering,
yeah,
you can feel that emotion through your body.
Yeah.
All the time. In NFL, they cheer on one big play.
Yeah. In
college football, they cheer continuously. And if you look at the difference in the scoreboards, Charlton, between college football and NFL football, there's 50% more points scored in a college football game than there is in an NFL game. Yeah. Sometimes 100% more, Charlton. But on average, over 50%. So when you think about that pure excitement of those young men trying to get to the next level, those fans showing their appreciation, you gotta love college football, Charlton.
Well, I love college football, especially this year on the iHeartRadio network. If you follow Charlton and Big C Sports, we'll be talking sports every Monday through Friday at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time worldwide with the iHeartRadio app. Simply go to iHeartRadio and type in Charlton and Big C Sports. Also, Big C finishing out the top 20. They have, looks like, Ole Miss, another SEC team, Michigan State, TCU, the University of Washington Huskies, followed by Houston and the UCLA Bruins, as well as Iowa, which was blown out in the Rose Bowl last year. They have Georgia, as well as Louisville, and then USC. And rounding out the top 25 is Oklahoma State, North Carolina, Baylor, Oregon, and then Florida, Big C. So no matter who you follow, we told you Phil Knight, we're looking for that $1 million sponsorship from you, Phil Knight. And like your advertisement says, just do it. Sponsor Charlton and Big C Sports on the iHeartRadio network. If you have the chance, if you're a business and you're looking to advertise, you would think you want to put your advertisement in front of the biggest platform in the United States. iHeartRadio is bigger than Fox. They're bigger than Google. They're bigger than all the other platforms that you can put your money into. And when you put your money in Charlton and Big C Sports, you're actually going to get a good return on your investment. Big C, I know we talked about the Olympics. We talked about some of the football that happened in the NFL in preseason. We love college football coming up. I'll let you close out on your thoughts and what you're looking forward to this week, Big C.
Well, Jonathan, I'm looking for some teams to make some moves in the NFL. There's several teams that still need to start make a decision on their starting quarterback, as well as a couple of the major colleges, Charlton, when you think about that. Everybody now is starting to brace themselves. They got to get down to that 53-man roster in the NFL over the next 2 weeks. So that's where the real interesting part. You're going to see a lot of veterans starting to play, Charlton, over the next couple of weeks in the NFL. And you're going to get a real gauge for what you can expect come the regular season. But college football, you can expect excitement. From day one, when Alabama kicks off the football and keeps kicking butt the rest of the way down the field, you know what to expect. The only thing that will be clean on a USC uniform is the front of that jersey, because the back sheet will be rubbed off.
Well, I understand that, Big C. I think Lynn Swan takes a front to that, Big C. And you can also take a front to it every Monday through Friday at 5 o'clock p.m. Pacific Standard Time worldwide. You can follow Charlton and Big C Sports on Twitter and Facebook, also on the iHeartRadio network. Just download the app and type in Charlton and Big C Sports. And also, as we want to tell everyone, let's be safe out there. No drinking and driving, and please be safe to our women. If you know anyone going through domestic violence issues, call 911 and help keep them safe. And for you good old boys out there, every Monday through Friday at 5 o'clock p.m. Pacific Standard Time, worldwide, follow Charlton and Big C Sports. We thank you, we appreciate you, and we hope that you have a super fantastic day.